Hello and welcome to this new video from me. Today we will face off in the top 16 against IcyPenguin2, who is a newer face to the Randomness community, but he is really strong because he was able to win the Battle Factory Open this year, the tournament I won the year before. So he really is a strong opponent, and the formats we are going to play are the Battle Spot Factory Open, I think it's called. Battle Spot Singles Factory Open. It's the format where you play a 3v3. Basically what you play on the Nintendo Switch or before on the Nintendo 3DS if you play the ranked season and single battles. Then we've got the Generation 8 Open where you just play Generation 8. We've got the Generation 9 Open where we just play Generation 9. These were my top two picks, by the way. And then we also got the Game Boy Open again, where one of us can choose between Generation 1, Generation 2 and Generation 3 random battles. And last but not least, we've got the Hackmons Cup Open, a pick by Icy, and that format is a bit wild because there are a lot of different Hackmons Cup formats, and I won't say too much about Hackmons Cup, but you will find out in the video what it is all about. Will I be able to win and get a spot in top 8? Let's find out. Alright, we are in the first game and I chose Generation 2 Random Battle because I thought that it is some nice pace, because Gen 3 we had in the last week, so I didn't want to play Gen 1 because I hate Gen 1, but I thought in Generation 2 I might have an advantage because I know how to play long games. And let's take a look at our team. We've got 4 attacks, Executor, Sneasel, an unknown S, Porygon2, Hitmontop, and Wheezing. And the unfortunate part about our team currently is we don't have a single Pokemon that learns Rest. And that is pretty bad because usually how you win Generation 2 random battles is that you used your Rest Sleep Talk Pokemon the best, but we don't have a single one of those on our team. On top of that, we've got an Unknown and a Sneasel, which are not the greatest Pokemon. But now I have to make a decision against the Kabutops first. Do I want to click Psychic? Do I want to click Giga Drain? Do I want to switch? Do I want to click Hidden Power Fire? Because it is not unlikely that he switches to a Steel type. So going for Hidden Power Fire would be nice, but there are also not a lot of Steel types in this generation. We've got like Magneton, we've got Steelix, Fortress, and I can click Hidden Power Fire against those later on as well. And Steelix is not the best switching into a Giga Drain as well. So what do I want to click here? I decide to lock into Psychic because it is good enough if he decides to stay, and if he switches I can maybe get a special defense drop or hit a poison type or a bug type for more damage. And also there's this mechanic I didn't tell you yet. If you go for a substitute, you are immune to drain moves like Giga Drain, Mega Drain, Leech Life. All these moves don't work on a Pokemon that have a substitute up. And Kabutops actually runs substitute sometimes, and that's why I didn't want to click Giga Drain, because if IcyPenguin knows the mechanic as well, he might go for substitute, and if I go for Giga Drain I gain nothing and we see a Dunsparce switch instead. But that shows me that he doesn't have the greatest Executor switching, because Dunsparce is okay but not great. The question is, what do I want to go now? Hitmontop is the obvious choice, but we do not have Rest. So we don't have a form of recovery, but I still decide to go to Hitmontop. He goes for Thunder and doesn't get the paralysis with 30%. That is nice. And now I can either go for Hidden Power Walk, for High Jump Kick, for Curse, or I can just switch out immediately, because I thought he will switch to a Fighting Resist, and there we have a Poison type. And this is a Pokemon I kind of wanted to see, and I also didn't want to see, because I don't want to take a Toxic on the Executor. I don't want to take a Wing Attack, and Psychic doesn't KO the Crobat in return as well. So do I want to click Psychic? I'm really in between, because getting damage on the Crobat would really help out Hitmontop and Sneasel, because our Sneasel doesn't have an Ice-type move. So I'm currently locking in Psychic against the Crobat. And we saw that his last switch was with Dunsparce, right? So he doesn't have a Dark type most likely. There are also not a lot of Dark types to be fair. There's like Houndoom, Murkrow, and we see the Dunsparce switching again, and we get the special defense drop, and that is big because now we do more than 50%. He cannot go for rest, and that's why I decided to just click Psychic again, because based on how he played, he doesn't have another Psychic resist. Also, don't worry about the chat too much. We were just having a little fun. It was a little distracting back then when I played. I tried to ignore it first row. Especially because some comments are close to ghosting. Ghosting means that you help other people by saying what the others can go for. So I was first trying to /mod chat, the whole chat, but I also did not want to deny all the people speaking at all. So I tried to look for an option where I can block messages in a battle, but I didn't find it. And then I was looking here and I couldn't find it. And we see Magneton as a switch, but I still wanted to get rid of the spectators first, so I thought /ignore spectators works, and it says user spectators ignored. And that is pretty funny because I thought I was ignoring all the spectators, and then I saw the next message and I was like, wait, I thought I ignored spectators. So I was a little confused, but now against the Magneton I can switch into Sneasel because Hidden Power Ice is very likely, and I didn't want to go for Hidden Power Fire because Hidden Power Fire doesn't KO, and I thought maybe I have to refresh the page because then the spectators will be ignored. But I gotta tell you, this is not the case. But as I said, don't worry about it too much. Now I am really inclined to go for Toxic because he knows probably that Sneasel can carry HP ground. I'm also considering switching back to Executor because he doesn't have a great switch in, as we saw. Only something like Dunsparce or Magneton. But Hidden Power Ground is fine as well because he might also stay because he doesn't know the set. And if he goes to something like Crobat, Toxic wouldn't achieve anything as well. So I was really thinking about this turn a lot. And we can see that his timer is also running low. He currently is at 90 seconds. And timer management is something you have to keep in mind. You also should not play too fast. I think I'm playing way too fast sometimes, but for now it's fine. We can just go to Weezing on the Crobat because you see this wing attack damage. That's basically nothing. And Weezing pretty much always runs Thunder. And I expected him to switch to something like Magneton or maybe a ground type. So that's why I decided to lock in Fire Blast. But then I was like, does he stay? He could stay, but what does he do? Maybe he has Hidden Power Ground, but that does not KO. I can go for Sludge Bomb, Fire Blast, and Thunder, and I was going for the mid ground, which is Fire Blast, and he stayed, and that's unfortunate. And now he switches to Magneton, but we get the Para, and that is really, really lucky because now the Fire Blast knocks out the Magneton. And he doesn't have a great switch in, because if he goes Dunsparce, Weezing outspeeds Dunsparce, and Fire Blast into Sludge Bomb would KO. That's why he goes Kabutops. That's very smart. I didn't want to go for Thunder here, because if he has Substitute, he can spam Substitute until I miss, then go for Swords Dance, and if I miss again, I'm in a really precarious situation. That's why I decided to go Hitmontop instead. And we see that he has 3 fighting type weaknesses, 2 Pokemon in the back, and Crobat. So the Crobat switch is very obvious, and that's why I go for Hidden Power Walk, and that worked beautifully because we catch the Crobat here, and I can go for Hidden Power Walk again. It doesn't quite KO, and after Leftovers, it is also not in Mach Punch range because it's 4 times resisted. So that's why I decide to go to Weezing, and he goes to Blastoise, and I was thinking about this matchup and it was fine for me, but he goes for Zap Cannon and hits and gets the Para, and I wanted to go for Pain Split and he crits, but we get the Pain Split off, so the crit isn't even as bad. Now I can go to Executor and I can just go for Psychic again because I can crit the Dunsparce, I can KO the Crobat, and even if he stays, I get damage on the Blastoise. Giga Drain only is a 60 base power move in this generation, so it is not worth it to go for it yet, especially because it only has 8 power points. I have to use it wisely. So now the question is, how does he react to this Psychic? Does he want to switch? He might go to Magneton because it resists both stabs. He might go to Dunsparce because it survives everything and can go for Rest. He might stay and go for a Zap Cannon Para, but he decides to go to Magneton. And now I could go to Sneasel again, or I go for Hidden Power Fire. HP Ice does 50% and I can recover this damage back with Giga Drain against the Blastoise or the Kabutops, especially because the Blastoise revealed Zap Cannon. It does not have Ice Beam. It is Zap Cannon, Surf, Rest, Sleep Talk, and we see that he goes for Thunder even better, but he crits. And that Thunder crit actually does more than a Hidden Power Ice without a crit, and now we are very, very low. And on top of that, Magneton is not in range for Giga Drain because Giga Drain does 16% max, and that's why I have to go for Psychic here. I don't go for Hidden Power Fire here because I don't want to give him a free switch, and Psychic is also enough to knock out the Magneton. But this crit throws me off quite a bit because now the Executor, which is supposed to be the switching for Kabutops and Blastoise, doesn't switch in that well anymore. We get a crit in return, but that crit did not matter at all. Psychic always KO'd there, and he goes back to Crobat. I can just go to Weezing again, or I go to Unknown, because we saw that his Psychic resists are non-existent. He used Dunsparce and Magneton, and the cool part about Unknown is, you see, the Crobat is level 69 and our Unknown is level 100. So we have a huge level advantage, and that's why Unknown, if the opponent doesn't have a Steel or a Dark or a Psychic type, Unknown is super threatening because we see that Parasect and it takes a lot of damage. I do not want to take the Spore on Unknown though. So do I go to something like Sneasel to take the Spore? Do I go to Weezing because it's already paralyzed? But if I go Weezing, he could go for Sword Stance into Hidden Power Ground, and that's what he went for. And I could have stayed with Unknown and just 2 KO with Parasect and just win the game probably, but now I have Sneasel in, and with Sneasel I have a lot of different options. I decide to go for Return because I just wanted to get damage on the Parasect, but he goes to Crobat, and I was fine with that because Crobat isn't super threatening. It can carry Rest, but it doesn't carry Sleep Talk. That's why I go to Unknown, and he goes back to Blastoise, and I do not want to get parried by Zap Cannon, but I can also not switch to Weezing on the Surf. So that's why I decide to go Executor, and he hits yet another Zap Cannon. We are 2 out of 2 now, and I just decide to go for Giga Drain because even if he switches to Crobat or Parasect, I get Leftovers recovery, as well as small Giga Drain recovery, which is important, because I need Executor long-term for the Blastoise, and now I can just go Unknown again, and I can tell you something now. The Parasect, you just saw it, gets 2 KO'd. The Blastoise also takes 35%, and now he is forced to use Rest, but he goes for Zap Cannon instead. And at this point, I wanted to Giga Drain, and he stayed, so I get a lot of damage on the Blastoise. I go for Giga Drain again, he goes for Rest, and I don't get Parrot, and now I'm in a range. I only have 5 Giga Drains left, so that's why I wanted to go for Psychic. You saw it, I locked in Psychic, but I get Parrot, so the Crobat stays alive. But I can just go Unknown again, and now the Blastoise is not a switch in anymore, because it took the Giga Drain earlier. He goes to Kabutops, but 60% is so much, and Unknown is also faster than the Kabutops. I was just double checking that, so I can just Hidden Power Psychic again, and we get a KO. And now he goes to Parasect, and I go to Executor on the Spore, and that worked pretty well again. I go for Hidden Power Fire because he could go for Sword Stance and hope for some Paras, but instead he goes to Crobat. But for Crobat, I just go Unknown again, and now my best play is to go Sneasel. I go for Hidden Power Psychic though, and my Unknown gets put to sleep, and that is really bad, but also not too bad, because Porygon2 takes a +2 return easily. It does like 50%, and Ice Beam is a 2 KO. On top of that, we get a freeze. That freeze is super unfortunate for Icy, but he had to crit the Porygon2 to KO it. So now I just went for Double Edge because it hits Dunsparce and Blastoise harder. And now I can just go back to Executor. He goes to Crobat. And my Executor is pretty much full life again. So that's why I decide to go for Psychic. And I don't get Parrot, so I get the Crobat now. So it's only Dunsparce and Blastoise and Parasect left. And I decide to go Hitmontop on the Dunsparce, where he goes for return, and now I claim a KO with High Jump Kick, because Blastoise is in range for High Jump Kick into Mach Punch, Dunsparce is in range for High Jump Kick, and he goes to Parasect, and he falls. In Generation 2, you can only fall at the end of each turn, and I just decide to go for Empower Rock, because I can get the KO there, and now I can just win with High Jump Kick, because if a Blastoise gets Surf, I 2 KO it, as you can see here. If he gets Zap Cannon, it's just a coin flip if he hits, but he gets Rest. So that's a little unfortunate, but I can just go back to Eggy. He gets Surf this time, but I can just heal myself back up with Giga Drain. Go to Hitmontop again. He goes for Thunder, probably trying to fish for a Para, but he misses instead. I can go to Executor again. He goes for a clever double switch to Dunsparce. I go to Hitmontop again. He fishes for a Para again and gets it this time. And now he has to go for a full Para. He doesn't get the full Para, so I get the High Jump Kick off. And now I can just go back to Executor. He went for Sleep Talk, interestingly enough, and now I decide to go for Psychic because I only have 3 Giga Drain left, and I first want to get a special defense drop, but he just surrenders because his Blastoise is not winning with 1v6. It could have won it because it beats Weezing and Hitmontop. It can also beat Sneasel, especially after it gets paralyzed by Zap Cannon. It can beat Unknown, and it can also beat Porygon2 if he hits with Zap Cannon and I get paralyzed multiple times. So him just keeping attacking is surprising, but I also had Explosion on the Executor, which deals a lot of damage because defense is halved in Generation 2. So I take it. And now he challenged me to Hackmons Cup. You saw that I challenged him, but he said Gen 9 Hackmons Cup next. And Hackmons Cup is a format where this is what people think of when they see or when they hear random battles. Everything is random. Abilities, Pokemon, items, moves. Obviously not the typings. Like, it's not super random, but other than the mons and its stats, it's random. And we have a really cool Marshtomp set, really offensive. Crocolore with Flip Turn and Fijiberry is pretty cool. Roly-Coly with Shell Side Arm and Ancient Power is nice. Mr. Mime with Tower Volt, Blizzard, Fire Blast and Nightshade. Gouging Fire with Population Bomb. And Dalmice with Mirror Armor, Earth Power and Sludge Wave. He got Why Not as a lead, and I had to think of what I want to do here. Do I want to scout by going Gouging Fire? Because if he has a grass type move, let's say this Why Not could have Petal Blizzard, it could have Giga Drain, it could have pretty much every grass move, but do I want to scout this? Does he want to scout if I have a strong Dark or Ghost type move? That's like how you play Hackmons Cup. I just decided to click Gunk Shot because it's my strongest move, and it also has a 30% chance to poison my opponent. And if he switches, it is not unlikely that he switches to a Fairy type because I can threaten him with a Dark type attack, right? That's why I thought going for Gunk Shot is a little better than Glacial Lance. Here he doesn't see my team, but I use the command /show team and put it in my calculator if I want to calc certain stuff, and I just wanted to figure out my Crocolore nature. And we've got a gentle nature, and that means that we don't get confused by our berry, because the 3 warm berries, that's how they are called, the Fiji, Ayapapa, Aguaf, these 30% berries just confuse your Pokemon if they have a certain nature. But yeah, we see Sleep Powder instead of a grass move. It is still a grass move, but the problem is there's no Sleep Clause in Gen 9 Hackmons Cup, so that's why I decided to stay with Marshtomp, already burn 1 turn of sleep, and now he goes to Wheezing, and that implies that he has a grass type move, right? So I can go to Dalmice. I have a super effective move myself, but we see Aurora Beam, and Aurora Beam is fine because it only did 22%, and my Earth Power will do more in return. I could obviously predict again that he switches to something that's... Because I switch into Dalmice, that automatically means that I have either a ground type move or a psychic type move. So he might switch into a dark type or a flying type. You know, that's super interesting, and also that's how it works. We go for Earth Power and we see Morgram. So going for Sludge Wave would have been better, but now I switch to Crocolore because with that I can scout, and he has a Throat Chop, which is also Stab. So it did quite a lot. Crocolore has really good defense stats, and yeah, this Morgram is scary because we don't have a Dark Resist, and I just wanted to double check what the Hondude Berry does, and it has no effect. So yeah, I can just go for the slow flip turn, and he goes to Wheezing. And we saw that he went for Aurora Beam last time, and Mr. Mime actually does decent damage into Wheezing because Wheezing doesn't have the greatest special defense, and we've got 2 very strong moves with Blizzard and Fire Blast. Since Fire Blast is a little more accurate, I decide to go for that, especially because he switches to Goliath support and we get the 10% burn. That is so incredibly lucky, it's insane. Now I have to make a decision. What do I wanna switch into the Goliath support? I decided to go Crocolore because I thought Crocolore can scout the moveset, and that's what it does. We see Poison Jab, and now I decide to go for Mighty Cleave to get damage on the Goliath support, but unfortunately we get poisoned. I could have also used Flip Turn and go to Marshtomp, but we still do not know if a Goliath support maybe has a grass type move. That's so scary about having 4-time weak Pokemon in Hackmons Cup. But yeah, now we go for Flip Turn, he goes to Morgram, and we can just react on that Morgram again. I decide to do something that makes a lot of sense to me, and that is going Roly Coly because it has a super effective move. He might just greed for a Throat Chop, but he should know that since I switch into Roly Coly, I probably have something for the Morgram. So maybe I should go for Ancient Power because that is also step. Ancient Power and Shell Side Arm are both same power, both are 90 because of a step, and I could get an Omni boost, but I decided to just click Shell Side Arm and knock out this Goliath support. He goes to Wheezing, and I wanted to keep Roly-Coly for the Morgan. That's why I go to Mr. Mime, and we see Sansear Storm. And that is a very strong move. 100 base power. I go for Fire Blast again, and he misses Sansear Storm. 80%, but still super unfortunate. And now I can go for Blizzard. I can go for Fire Blast again. And I was thinking about going to Dhelmise, because I didn't want to take another Sansear Storm on my Mr. Mime. And that made perfect sense to me. I decided to click Earth Power because my plan was to get the Morgram in and then go for Terra Fighting Sludge Wave to KO it, but he got Flamigo. And against Flamigo I can use Crocalor to scout again, because Crocalor still has its berry, and we see Luster Purge, which crits, doesn't get the drop luckily. And we see that we are faster with Flip Turn, and that is super interesting. I decided to go Mr. Mime because Mr. Mime resists the Luster Purge, and now he doesn't have an Ice Resist, so I can go for Blizzard, but I miss. And he goes for Discharge and gets the Para. So this time I got super unlucky. I decided to go for Fire Blast this time because I already expected a switch out, and since I didn't want to miss here, I decided to just click Nightshade, and he goes for no retreat, and we get the KO on Wheezing. If he used this Wheezing later in the game, it could have been scary. No retreat, Sansear Storm, Aurora Beam, that would have been so scary, but luckily we could get rid of it now, and he goes back to Morgram. And against this Morgram, I do not have a lot. That's why I decided to toss Crocalor, because Crocalor is useless, obviously, and I can get a free switch into Roly-Coly again if I want to. I could go to Gouging Fire, but I didn't want to reveal the Gouging Fire quite yet. And now I have to make a decision what I want to click with Roly-Coly. I thought about going Marshtomp because I expected him to go Why Not, and then I can burn more of my sleep turns. But what if he just wants to get damage on the Roly-Coly, because he doesn't have a lot for this one Pokemon, because Why Not probably doesn't beat it, and the Flamigo only has like Luster Purge and Discharge, so it might not be able to beat Roly-Coly either, so it is not unlikely that he just goes for Throat Chop. So that's why I in the end decided to stay and just click Shell Side Arm, playing it safe. And maybe he terras with Morgram, and then I can react to this a little better, because Terra is also an important mechanic in this kind of format. We see that he switches to Why Not, and now I can't even burn a Sleep Turn, because if I go Marshtomp, he dies to Poison. So staying is just better. I double checked my speed set for Marshtomp and then looked it up on Roly-Coly, and my Marshtomp outsped with Why Not in the first turn. So my Roly-Coly will outspeed here. And do we get the boost? No, we don't. And now I decided to go Marshtomp because I thought I can burn sleep turns on this Flamigo. I can also wake up here and KO. We are faster and we don't wake up and we get the Spadef drop. But now we have a 50% chance. We don't wake up. Unfortunate. Now he can toss Why Not, but he doesn't decide to toss Why Not. He decides to stay in with Flamigo. So we get this KO on the Flamigo. And now it's pretty much a 5v2. I thought Mr. Mime dies to Throat Chop, but it doesn't. I wanted to sacrifice Mr. Mime to get a free switch into Roly-Coly, but now he tosses Why Not. And the last Pokemon he has is Cacturn. And I should probably just toss Marshtomp. Instead, I just stay, greed for the Shell Side Arm, and yeah. Cacturn outspeeds and has a Stab Giga Drain. And that is very scary because I didn't want to go Gouging yet, and he also has Shadow Punch. I went for Sludge Wave because he saw Earth Power, right? And I thought, yeah, he will go to Morgram for sure, but he didn't. And now I get this Earth Power off, but at this point I toss Marshtomp because Marshtomp dies to Throat Chop. But Dhelmise doesn't, and Dhelmise can get a Sludge Wave off on the Morgram. I decide to go for Snipe Shot here. Maybe it KOs the Cacturn. He cannot switch into Morgram either. So, yeah. I am fine in that position because I kept my Population Bomb Gouging Fire up to the end, and the Cacturn is a rock type, and his Morgram can also not terrestrialize anymore into a Ghost, Steel, Rock, whatever resists normal too. I think it's only Steel and Rock actually. But yeah, we see Spark, and he gets the Para. And that is so bad, because now this whole Gouging Fire against Morgan matchup can get a little dicey, especially because I get another full Para and a crit. And I probably lose to the Morgram now. It depends on what the other moves are, especially because the Morgram has Moonlight. And I get how many hits with Population Bomb? 8. So do I just Population Bomb again, or do I Metal Sound? I decided to go for Population Bomb, and I get 1 crit, 2, okay, just 2. Now I decide to click Metal Sound to put it in range that Sludge Wave KOs, but I forgot about the secondary effect from Throat Chop. I don't know how, but now I have to just hope that I KO with Population Bomb. 1, 2, crit, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, crit, 8, 9, 10. I needed 10 hits and 2 of them had to crit so that I KO it, and I get it. That was insane. That was so insane. The question is, does he have something to KO the Dhelmise with? Because I still have Sludge Wave, and I would survive a Throat Chop because I'm a fighting type. Nonetheless, the Population Bomb was incredibly lucky, because getting 10 hits is like 36%, because each of these hits can miss. And he said that he had Flare Cannon on the Morgram. So having 2 stabs that are actually strong as well with Throat Chop and Flare Cannon is crazy. So I would have never gotten the Sludge Wave off if he hits the Flare Cannon onto the Dhelmise, but sometimes you need to be a little lucky. Now I use the command to look up all the sets the Pokemon for my opponent can run. For example, as you can see, Vikavolt only has 1 set. Iron Hands has 2 sets, but you can also see the probability of each set. I forgot to put in Cornerstone here. Cornerstone only has 1 set as well. Dragapult, on the other hand, has 6 different sets. Gliscor only has 1, and Chi-Yu has 6 again. So I first look up the sets that have a guaranteed spawn rate. So we know that the Vikavolt is Citrus Berry. We know that the Gliscor is EQ Substitute Toxic Protect. And we also know that the Ogerpon is Ivy Cudgel, Horn Leech, maybe Swords Dance, maybe Quick Attack, maybe Anchor. And now I have to make a decision on what I want to bring. The Focus Sash Chiampao looks really strong. It beats 4 out of 6 Pokemon. Just Iron Hands and Vikavolt are a little annoying, but the other 4 just died to Chiampao. And we've got Sucker Punch for the Dragapult as well. I bring my Melodic as a Chi-Yu check and also as a Gliscor check, because if we are burnt, we cannot get poisoned, and then we can just spam Scald. It's also not bad into the Dragapult, and I decide to bring Meowscarada in the bag for some speed control. He decides to go Vikavolt, and I can just go for Icy Crash. I have a 30% chance to flinch with Vikavolt, and switching here, I don't have a great switch in, and I miss. And that is really unfortunate, because never mind, I get the flinch now. So if I get another flinch, I can KO the Vikavolt, but I don't get another flinch. So I think in the end it was fair what happened. And now I decide to get the KO with U-turn, because I don't want to lock myself into a move quite yet. And I also want to get the Flame Orb activated on the Melodic, so that I cannot get poisoned by the Gliscor. The next Pokemon we see, is it Iron Hands? Is it Ogerpon? It's probably not Chi-Yu here. It's probably Dragapult, also not. The Gliscor can go Terra Water and suddenly have a good matchup into Milotic, but then we've got Flower Trick on the Meowscarada. So what do I decide to go here? This is a best of 3, but not a best of 3, but this is a 3v3. That's basically the format you play on the Nintendo Switch. Battle Spot Singles, it is called. And he goes to Ogerpon. And I don't want to take a Horn Leech. You see on the screen, it always carries Ivy Cudgel, Horn Leech, and then either Anchor or Knockoff, and Quick Attack, Rock Tomb, or Sword Stance. And it reveals Sword Stance. And now, if I take an Ivy Cudgel, I die, and then I have to Terra my Lordic to Terra Fire, but then he can also Ivy Cudgel. That's why I decide to go for a Meowscarada endgame. I can U-turn here to get the Milotic in, toss the Milotic, and then I have to make a decision on what I want to use as my last Pokemon, or like what I want to lock myself into. I decided Flower Trick is the choice. He goes Dragapult. If he had Iron Hands or Gliscor, Flower Trick was way better than Knockoff, and Terra Grass Flower Trick could have also KO'd the Chi-Yu. He goes Terra Fire with a Dragapult, goes for Dragon Darts. Does it even KO me? It does. Even if it hasn't, or even if it didn't KO, I did not KO him back with Terra Grass choice by Flower Trick, and with that, the series is now 2-1 for me. We only have Gen 8 and Generation 9 open left. So now the question is, which open is he going to pick, or which open am I going to pick? Because I can choose, and I decide to go for Gen 9 because I wanted to go with my best generation available to maybe finish him off faster, or even if I lose, I can see how he plays in these modern generations and then play Generation 8 according on how he played Generation 9. He has a pretty good lead here with Generation... he has a pretty good lead here with Livani into the Carbink. And this is not great because he has a Leaf Blade to threaten us with. He got Sticky Web pressure because we don't have the best removal. We've got Great Tusk with Rapid Spin, but do I want to go Great Tusk onto a Livani? No. Can he always go Livani on Great Tusk to set up Sticky Web again? Yes. So that's why I am not really happy about this lead, but I have to make a decision regardless. What do I want to go? Do I want to go Araquanid and set up my own Sticky Web? I thought yes. The question was, do I maybe Leech Life first? Because I would, especially because he clicks Leaf Blade instead of Lunge. If he clicked Lunge, I would have not recovered enough so that Leaf Blade KOs him after, but he clicked Leaf Blade against Araquanid, which doesn't make sense. You either click Sticky Web or Lunge, not Leaf Blade. But it worked out for him because I clicked Sticky Web. But if I clicked Leech Life, I would have done more damage. I would have recovered enough to survive the next move. So not clicking Lunge, I just straight up do not see it. Now I have Sinistcha on the field and he got Toucaned on. A perfect wall for my Sinistcha. And the cool part is that we've got a pretty defensive team with Wordier, Alomomola, Sinistcha. So we also have answers for most of his Pokemon. We go Alomomola, he sees that we have a heavy duty boots and he goes to Livani. And against Livani, I would be fine to take, we also see that he has heavy duty boots, but I would be fine taking a knockoff because it's only the boots against the Sticky Web. That's not as important. And the problem is I go to Sinistcha here and he can just go to Toucanon. He can stay. I decide to go for Machagotcha because I have a burn chance. And if I get the burn here, which I unfortunately do not get, I suddenly wall the Livani with my Alomomola. On top of all that, he can just U-turn again to Livani I can either flip turn or I go to Sinister and he reveals that he has Annihilate. And that is really bad because it has Defiant, it doubles its attack every time it switches in because the Sticky Web is up, but he will probably go for the Ghost move. Now he also goes for Terror Ghost, which is surprising to see, but this Annihilate is pretty much unbeatable. Look at this Drain Punch damage. He luckily gives us the opportunity to get a T-Wave off, and he goes for a Drain Punch again against the obvious Psychic Noise. I take that, and now I decided to click Thunderbolt because I thought he might go to Toucanon and then go for Boom Burst, but he went to Levani instead. I can go Sinistra, and Sinistra doesn't get Twit KO by the knockoff at this point, but I still need to be healthy, so that's why I decide to go for Strength Sap. I go Alomomola again, and he uses to Annihilate again, and at this point it already has some stacks. The flip turn damage is quite important, and I locked in the Sinistra so fast because I knew that he would click Drain Punch. And now I am kind of in between. I want to catch the Toucanon, and that works with Carbink because now I can get a Moonblast off because he goes to Levani, and the Levani doesn't switch in that often anymore. So that's why I go Sinistra here. He gets a critical hit, but that's fine. But I don't get a burn with Toucanon. I decide to go for Strength Step because I would have survived the Beak Blast because the Strength Step would come before the Beak Blast. And now he reveals that he has Charizard. Is he Dragon Dance? Is he Sword Dance? We see Will-O-Wisp. So he is with Special Step with Hurricane, Flamethrower, Will-O-Wisp, and either Earthquake or Focus Blast. Now I can go for Scald, get a lot of damage on the Charizard, but he gets the Hurricane Confusion into Self-Hit. And that puts me into a really bad position, especially because he also gets the burn on the Carbink. I decide to go back to Alomomola because he could go for Earthquake, but he goes for Focus Blast and misses. That is also good for me, but I didn't want to risk my Alomomola getting confused and self-hit again. That's why I switched back to Carbink and now back to Alomomola. He missed the Hurricane on the Carbink though. I can go Sinistra on the Levani again. Maybe I get the burn this time. It's the third Matagotcha and we get the burn this time. Now Cormine Sinistra looks super threatening. I decide to go for Matagotcha again because I wanted to catch a switch him, but he just goes to Charizard. That makes perfect sense, but now I went for Alomomola switch, but he clicked Hurricane and got 47% onto my Alomomola. That's why I have to switch out, get my Regenerator active, and he gets the Moonblast special attack drop. Obviously, I can play the 50-50 again with Sinistra Wordier. What move is he going to click? He clicked Drain Pulse, so if I win Sinistra, I would have been in a perfect position. But I thought if I toss something, it is Araquanid now. And I go Wordier now because Wordier actually threatens my opponent quite a bit, and getting Leftovers recovery is also important because maybe we can get into a range where we survive a Drain Punch. Yeah, he goes for Boom Burst. I can just go for Matagotcha on the Roost. And I thought he would switch to Charizard instead of Roosting, because otherwise it would give me 3 Core Mines. But now he U-turns to Charizard and we get a crit Spadef drop. Very lucky, but I didn't want to go for Terra Steel yet. We've got Heat Proof as an ability, another Hurricane miss, and now I decide to target down this Toucanon with Carbink, because Body Press on Roost does a decent chunk, especially with the burn damage. I decided to click Moonblast now because I thought he might switch to Levani or Annihilate, but he just spams Roost, which is surprising because I thought he would keep Toucanon for the Wordier, because he can switch into it once, can threaten it with Boom Burst, because Boom Burst isn't affected by burn. We got so many special take drops. We also got 1 crit, which is really funny. But I have to time this KO pretty well, because if he gets a free switch into with Levani again, he can double switch onto the Charizard. When I go Sinistra, my Carbink is slow, so it's not a great Charizard answer anymore. So yeah, everything is a little tricky. He goes to Annihilate, and again, do I go Verdier? Do I go Sinister? Do I just stay? What do I want to do? I go to Verdier and I get this call right again because he clicked Rage Fist, and now I can just click Psychic Noise, and the Annihilate still has either Taunt or Gunk Shot. We see Dragapult though, and this Dragapult got a speed drop, so it's not Clear Body, it's Infiltrator, and we see U-Turn, so it's the Choice Spec set and not the Dragon Dance set, and he goes to Annihilate once again. And at this point, I thought that I just want to take damage I just wanted to get damage on the Annihilate, but tossing Carbink is not the smartest idea in hindsight. The cool part about it is I get a free switch into Sinistra, and everything we saw so far is in Shadow Ball range. And he decides to toss Leavenny, which makes sense. But now Hurricane will just get a KO. So do I Terra Steel here? But then I have nothing to switch into Drain Punch anymore against the Annihilate. So it's a really, really tough turn. I decide to go Alomomola, and he misses. He had to hit 2 in a row to KO us, but he missed. And that puts us in another great spot because we can flip turn. He misses again, and now I could go Great Tusk, but Great Tusk dies to Hurricane, so that's why I go Verdier. He is in Blaze range, but I survive a Flamethrower and can get a KO with Psychic Noise. I get crit. And with that crit, we lose to Rage Fist. Every time Annihilate comes in now against Alomomola, he gets a KO with Rage Fist. Especially because he can also keep the Charizard alive for the Sinistra. I can obviously go for Flip Turn here, but I cannot beat the Charizard at this point. I go Great Tusk. I'm considering to set up Stealth Rocks, but the Charizard still has its heavy duty boots. And that's why I decide to go for Headlong Rush. If he U-turns to Charizard, I have to go back to Alomomola, but he just decides to go for Draco. I survive that, and I get the KO on the Dragapult. He cannot go to Annihilate because it dies to Headlong Rush, so now he goes to either Charizard or the last Pokemon. And I only have Sinistra, Alomomola, and the 11% Great Tusk left. He goes to Charizard. And my plan is to win with Sinistra. We see that he just goes for Flamethrower, and I can KO him with Flip Turn now. And that is pretty cool, because if he goes to Annihilate, I can get a KO with Shadow Ball again, and he misses yet another Hurricane. How many misses were that? I think he missed at least 5 Hurricanes, but this Hurricane in the end, the one in turn 63, doesn't matter, because we saw that the Alomomola would survive the Hurricane. Obviously, it would have mattered if he gets a Confusion into Self-Hit, but if not, it doesn't, because we see that he goes to Annihilate against the Great Tusk. We get the KO with Headlong Rush, and Golem Alola, 4 times weakness, also dies to Headlong Rush, and we win the series 3-1. Chaotic Gen 9 game, but we advance to the top 8. There you have it. We win the series 3-1, but that was such a tight series because we also had 3 games that went above the 60 turn mark, which is quite a lot for random battles. It is also quite a lot for normal battles, and that without even having a 5th game. And that showed that he really put up a fight, but we were able to squeeze into top 8 now. And our next opponent is going to be Mikaya, a very strong Italian player. He played for Team Italy in the Random Battles World Cup. Can we be victorious there as well? I don't know. Let's find it out next week, and wish me luck.